I am Vadic.
Captain of the USS Titan.
Star Trek Picard Season 3 is getting down, dirty, and very Deep Space Nine this week with a slew of deep-cut Easter eggs, surprise cameos, and two very important revelations to mysteries that have been running through the season since the first episode. Welcome back to ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Arey, and this is all the Easter eggs, references, and little things that you might have missed in Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 7, Dominion. The episode opens in deep space and we hear someone whistling Three Blind Mice, a foreshadowing reference to a huge revelation later in the episode, but not that anybody asked, but Three Blind Mice is technically the first song sung over the opening credits of the first James Bond movie ever.
They want to show that got the attitude of three blind mice.
No way.
Yes, that's right. In the opening of 1962's Dr. No, Three Blind Mice is sung prominently and features three assassins at the start of that movie. Interestingly, Dr. No's evil plot is all about trying to hijack a U.S. spacecraft from Cape Canaveral, and the changelings are basically hijacking a bunch of Starfleet ships without anybody knowing about it.
So Vadic is like Dr. Evil?
No, not Dr. Evil, Dr. No. He's got robot hands.
Dude, Star Trek's got people with robot hands all over the place.
Bashir. Julian Bashir.
Okay, fair point. The Titan is hiding in the Chantaka shipyard, a reference to the Chantaka system which comes from Deep Space Nine, most notably the episodes Tears of the Prophets and the Siege of AR-558.
I'm happy to report that the Chantaka system is ours once again.
It was a pivotal system for the Federation to retake during the Dominion War, and also the place where Star Trek killed Will Robinson from Lost in Space. The scrapyard represents the aftermath of various battles fought in the system in DS9 Season 6 and 7, most notably a combined Breen and Dominion battle against Starfleet in the episode The Changing Face of Evil. 7 is grilling Tuvok about the location of Riker, and yes, that means that for the first time since the Voyager finale of 2001, Tim Russ is playing Tuvok. Sort of. Tuvok and Seven talk about trying to reach Admiral Janeway, and Tuvok tells Seven that she's really busy with Frontier Day. Seven can't be sure if this is really Tuvok or a changeling imposter, so she makes a reference to Cal-To, the Vulcan puzzle game that she played with him on Voyager. Tuvok reminds her that Seven has beaten him countless times, and we briefly hear the Jerry Goldsmith Voyager theme play. As it seems that we're in the clear and that this really is Tuvok and not a shapeshifter. But then Seven suggests a meeting on Aquiline 7 and says,
I once underwent a procedure there to stabilize my neural pattern.
Now, Voyager fans know that Seven is lying because her neural pattern was stabilized by Tuvok during a Vulcan mind meld in the episode Infinite Regress. Furthermore, Seven says that a Vulcan would never go to Aquiline 7 after the anti-Kolinar demonstrations. Kolinar is the Vulcan ritual of shedding all emotion introduced in Star Trek the Motion Picture. Spock failed his Kolinar, but Tuvok succeeded at his Kolinar after his time serving with Captain Sulu, which we saw in the Voyager episode Flashback. Captain Janeway was even invited to the ceremony of Tuvok's daughter's completion of the Kolinar. So, Kolinar is a big deal in the Tuvok family. So this is not Tuvok. Seven notes that
Only the real Tuvok would know we played Cal-To.
which means that the changelings have captured and interrogated the real Tuvok. And because Tim Russ is actually playing a changeling here and not the real Tuvok, this is roughly the 6th different character that Russ has played in Star Trek canon.
Wait, are you counting all the times there's like Tuvok holograms or Tuvok illusions or people misremembering Tuvok in really inaccurate museums in the future, or the Doctor's weirdo holo novel where he made Tuvok into a human with a goatee?
Well, no, we don't count all those Tuvoks because outside of Voyager, Tim Russ has played Devore in Starship Mine, Takar in Invasive Procedures, this guy on the Enterprise B in Generations, and not to mention a mirror Tuvok in the DS9 episode Through the Looking Glass.
Oh, and don't forget about Tuvix.
Sorry, Tuvix was played by Tom Wright, and Tuvix is dead. Janeway killed him.
Justice for Tuvix.
Justice for Tuvix. High five. So this episode is called Dominion, which is of course a reference to the fact that the changelings were the founders of the Dominion, but also because one of the biggest plot revelations in this episode actually flashes us back to the era of the Dominion War itself. Geordi tells Jean-Luc that Worf and Raffi are monitoring Starfleet security at Exoport. This location has been mentioned in Picard Season 3 before, although we've never seen it and don't exactly know where it is. However, in the officially released Instagram data file on the USS Titan, we learned that the 23rd century Titan, captained by Saavik, had some action with the Klingons during the Exoport takeover. Presumably, in 2401, Exoport had some strategic advantage, which is why Starfleet security is around there. Geordi speculates that the changelings might be trying to create a perfect doppelganger Jean-Luc Picard, which vaguely recalls the origin of the younger Picard clone, Shinzon, played by young Tom Hardy in Nemesis. The Nemesis references keep rolling when Data mentions having been on the Scimitar.
I'm no longer on the Enterprise. The Scimitar.
This is the name of Shinzon's warship in Nemesis and the place where Data died, destroying a superweapon that was designed to wipe out the Federation. Picard says it was many years ago, but it was actually about 21 years prior, since Nemesis happened in 2379, and we're in like 2401-ish right now. In real life, though, it was 21 years ago.
So the same amount of time has passed in real life as it has in Star Trek? Is Picard like a Linklater movie?
Yes, exactly. Nemesis is kind of like Before Sunrise.
And this season is Boyhood.
Close enough. After being confronted by Laura's personality, Jean-Luc mentions that Laura has surely been deactivated. This references the events of TNG's Descent Part 2, in which Data personally deactivated Laura after Laura briefly led a rebellion of rogue Borg.
I love you, brother.
Goodbye, Lore.
Now, we learned from Geordi that Alt and Soong and B4 operate as a memory file only, but that Data and Laura's personality profiles are at war. And that's because having Data at war with B4 would be way too hilarious.
Why does the tall man have a furry face?
Picard wonders why Soong would stick Laura and Data into one body, and Geordi guesses that Soong hoped the two personalities would integrate into one. This idea that a positive and negative personality struggle within one person seems to reference the TOS classic, The Enemy Within, in which Spock made this classic observation.
We see here indications that it is his negative side which makes him strong. That his evil side, if you will, properly controlled and disciplined, is vital to his strength.
On the less philosophical front, though, Data manages to give Jean-Luc and Geordi a new clue. The changelings wanted to extract something from Picard's organic body, and it turns out that
Previous diagnosis of aromatic syndrome is in question.
this means that Picard maybe didn't die from what we thought he died from, and that the reason for his death might be linked to the greater mystery of the season. Laura shuts down any further revelations on this front. For now. Picard tells Geordi that years ago, Data asked him to end his life. This was in 2399 at the end of Season 1, so it was about 2 or 3 years ago, roughly. The version of Data who asked Picard to let him die was Data's other consciousness, kept alive in a quantum simulation for about 20 years. This new Season 3 version of Data's consciousness hasn't had that experience at all. In a way, this makes Season 3 Data kind of like the second Riker that happened from the transporter accident in Second Chances. Same memories, but only up to a point. Maybe to the point where we can view this as a separate character entirely. Meanwhile, over on the Shrike, Vadic is getting marching orders from her boss, who is very clearly not a changeling and refers to her as
You and your kind will find your own existence meaningless.
Now, we don't know who this person is at all, but let me know your theories down in the comments below. Back on the Titan, Jack is using a specific form of telepathy to flirt with Sidney LaForge. Now, for those who are shipping these two characters, this could be called La Crush, as per showrunner Terry Metalis on Twitter, as well as Sidney LaForge actress Ashley Sharp Chestnut.
Wow, I guess Jack really is the son of Professor Charles Xavier.
How did you know that?
Lucky guess. Name's Xavier. Charles Xavier. How do you do?
Perfection. Jack's eyes glow red again, and everyone is reminded of the Pa Wraith from Deep Space Nine. Several fans have speculated that Jack might have a Pa Wraith buried inside of him, which would, in a sense, be another reference to the Dominion War, since Sisko defeating the Pa Wraiths was a big part of making sure the galaxy was at peace. Soon, the crew gets a ping from Riker in the form of a
Compromised prefix code.
which references the concept of a starship prefix code from Wrath of Khan, in which we learned that a prefix code was a specific combination that allowed one starship to tell another starship what to do.
You have to learn why things work on a starship. Each ship has its own combination code.
The Titan crew decides to trap Vadic and the Changelings by faking a skirmish with a Vulcan ship. When Vadic and her thugs board the Titan, she scans for life forms, and we hear a very specific tricorder ping.
Scattered.
This is the same scanning sound effect used by tricorders in both Wrath of Khan and The Search for Spock. Jack and the crew trap their assailants with various containment fields, which are featured in various TNG episodes, including Brothers and Emergence. With Vadic trapped in sickbay, Picard and Crusher grill her and seriously consider just executing her outright. Vadic tells Picard and Crusher that Starfleet voted no to give the cure to changelings and that one of our own had to steal it. Now, look, this seems to be a game of telephone in terms of recent history. Section 31 developed both the morphogenic virus and the cure in Deep Space Nine.
Section 31 must have created the virus, infected Odo, and then used him as a carrier.
And Bashir managed to wring the cure out of Section 31 Agent Sloan in the episode Extreme Measures. But Vadic is correct that the cure was not delivered into the Great Link by Starfleet. Odo himself brought the cure to the Great Link in What You Leave Behind, the series finale of DS9. Now, how much Picard and the crew of the Enterprise were aware of any of this at the time is unclear. Now, Vadic may or may not have been exposed to the morphogenic virus at all, though, and that's because we learned that during a huge part of the Dominion War, she, along with 8 other changelings, was a prisoner of war at a secret Daystrom station. Turns out these new changelings changelings that can pass for humans were created on purpose by Section 31 in secret as part of something called Project Proteus. Now, in Greek myth, Proteus could change his shape to avoid capture. Proteus was also the name of the incredible shrinking ship from the 1966 movie The Fantastic Voyage, which featured music from Leonard Rosenman, who later composed the score for Star Trek VI, which we heard major cues from last week in the Picard episode, The Bounty.
What's that one? Is that a Klingon bird of prey?
Speaking of scores, this is the first episode of Picard Season 3 to feature compositions from this season's second composer, Freddie Weidman. In 2022, before the launch of Picard Season 3, Terry Matalas teased this would happen, saying, "The score gets so massive as the story grows that we had to bring in some extra help from Frederick Weidman." We also learn here that Vadic's human form derived from her taking the face of the Section 31 mad scientist who performed experiments on her at Daystrom Station. This makes Vadic like a twisted version of Jeff Bridges from Starman, which starred another Star Trek veteran from Deep Space Nine. This is your mom. Speaking of your mom, Vadic asked Beverly if she's prepared to lose another son, which is a reference to the fact that Wesley Crusher left this plane of existence to become an intergalactic traveler in the TNG episode Journey's End. Beverly almost lost her son to Lore in the very first Lore episode, Data Lore, in which we really learned that Lore loved chaos.
Why is Lore doing this?
Chaos! He loves the chaos!
Now, Lore's belief that helping the enemy of the Titan will also help him checks out with his past activities. Lore previously tried to team up with the planet-destroying crystalline entity in Data Lore, and later allied himself with the Rogue Borg in the Descent. Lore was even on a Pakled prior to the episode Brothers, which is why his outfit was so fly in that episode. Geordi appeals to the goodness of Data embedded in this new android body by telling Data that their friendship
made me better.
Data considered Geordi his best friend on TNG, which was seen in many episodes of the show, from Elementary Dear Data to The Price, to Data's Day and Descent, and also all throughout Generations.
That was not funny.
Although Picard has leaned on the idea that Jean-Luc was deeply impacted by the death of Data in Nemesis, we've never known how broken up Geordi must have been until now.
When you died, you broke me.
The episode ends with the confirmation that Jack is some kind of telepath who may also have the ability to jump into other people's minds. Now, where he got this power from is unclear, but as Vadic takes over the Titan, she uses the ship-wide boatswain whistle to address the entire crew of the Titan. We've heard this whistle on Trek many times before. Jack has to give himself up or else, and if he doesn't, we may never find out what his whole deal is. Now, is Jack an ESP mutant like Gary Mitchell from the original series? Or is he a secret Pa Wraith? Or something else entirely? Picard Season 3 has given us one of its biggest cliffhangers yet, and what's behind the red door feels increasingly confounding. Thank goodness Data's back though. Maybe he can put on that Sherlock Holmes cap and get down to business.
The game is afoot.
Well guys, that's all the Easter eggs that we found, but if you found any, let us know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe and smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Arey.